face on garden, body on blessing. Yeah, she got friends, but her money is her best friend. She already winning, now she working on the next one.
Addicted to you, don't you know that you're toxic? Taste of the Sam on the ride.
Hey you guys, my name is Kylan and I am the Bitcoin princess. Today is Wednesday, which means it is Wine Wednesday, my favorite day of the week, where we drink a little bit or a lot of wine and we talk about Bitcoin. I am going to talk to you guys today about my predictions for the price of Bitcoin over the next year to like 4 or 5 year range. As some of you may know, the Halvening is coming up. I'm gonna see if I can like look up an easier way to explain that because I get it, but that sounds like gibberish. So basically every 4 years, Bitcoin goes through a process called halving. So like halving. The mechanism was integrated into the protocol by Satoshi Nakamoto, who is Daddy. He is the man who created Bitcoin, so we'll call him Daddy Satoshi. So Daddy Satoshi created Bitcoin, and he also created within that this process called the halving. After about 4 years, the protocol goes through halving and it cuts the new supply in Bitcoin in half. So basically, like I said, every 4 years there is a new supply of Bitcoin, but this year it'll be half of what was added 4 years ago. So I hope you understand that every 4 years, new Bitcoin is created, and every single time it is half of what it was the last time. So now we're gonna go into what I believe the price of Bitcoin will be after the halvening, and then what I expect to result from that in the next 4 to 5 years. I will link this down below, but this, what I'm going to read from, just to kind of like give you guys like where this belief system is coming from and the facts and the numbers, because I'm not a super math whiz. I do understand math. I did pretty good in math growing up. I'm definitely not the one that created this system because, well, you'll see. Obviously I didn't create it. It is Plan B, which he kind of just talks about the math and the statistics behind what the price of Bitcoin will be over the next year to 4.5 years. And I'm also gonna give you guys a little bit more math to work with this, because I think he does leave some stuff out. And if you've ever taken like any math class or statistics class, the math should, well, if you've just taken like pre-algebra at one point in your life, the math should make sense. We're gonna start with scarcity and stock to flow. And we're going to define these things so you know what those two words mean, and these two words are the most important words in this whole video. Dictionaries usually define scarcity as a situation in which something is not easy to find or get, or in other words, a lack of something. So precious metals and collectibles have unaffordable scarcity due to the costliness of their creation. Like, this is why old classic cars are worth more now today than they were when they were created, because at the time you could easily create these old classic cars and there was an abundance of them, and now a lot of those have been like demolished and now there's only a few. So if you wanted like a 1920s Ford like the old gangsters used to have, it would cost you way more than it would have cost you back then to get one, because there's not as many of them. Bitcoin is the same way. If you wanted a crap ton of Bitcoin years ago, you could have gotten it for super cheap. Like, you could have paid $1 for like 1,300 Bitcoin, which now would be worth 9,100,000. I'm going to quote, like, I'm gonna read some quotes from some of my, like, one of my favorite people on the entire planet. His name is Saifedean Amos. I'm so sorry, Saif, if I am pronouncing your name wrong. Gosh, I've seen him like in person like multiple times, and you think I would and like watch a bunch of his videos and read his book. Read his book. I'll actually, hold on. It is The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Amos. And this book basically talks about all that Bitcoin is, why Bitcoin is freaking dope. It talks about the economic principles of Bitcoin and why it is the most secure form of currency on the planet today. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about what kind of wine we're drinking today, because clearly that is making a difference in how this video is going. So we're drinking this is from New Zealand. It's a 2018, I believe, 2019 from Marlboro's New Zealand. It's actually a member's mark that I got at just like Sam's Club, and it is fire. Let me tell you this. Okay, like it was, you know, like I was saying, if you're a reader and you want to learn every ins and out of Bitcoin, like on the economical, on the economical side of things and the financial side of things, this is the best book to read. Saifedean is actually a economist who specializes in Austrian economics, which is basically what everything is based off of today, unless you are like a flat earther or something. So this book is great, but if you're not a reader, we're gonna try to explain some things to you in like layman's terms. So I'm gonna try not to make this video super long, but like I said, I'm gonna get into reading some quotes from Saif. For any consumable commodity, which basically just means anything that anybody would want, doubling of output will dwarf an existing stockpile, bringing the price crashing down and hurting the hodlers, which means people who are holding on to gold. A price spike that causes a doubling of annual production will be insignificant. Increasing stockpiles by 3% rather than 1.5% generally doesn't make that much of a difference for people who hold gold. It is this consistently low rate of supply of gold that is the fundamental reason it has maintained its monetary role throughout human history. So since like most of us can remember, gold has been like the thing. And that's basically what that says. The high stock to flow ratio of gold, stock to flow means what you have versus what's coming in. There is not as much flow, which means being produced, as to what already exists. So you're not creating a lot of new gold. Makes it the commodity with the lowest price elasticity of supply. So if you've ever taken like an economics class or a statistics class, you kind of have an idea of what elasticity and inelasticity means. Elasticity in like super layman's terms for all the people who actually like know what the fuck they're talking about. It's very involatile, and it just stays in there because the supply isn't increasing drastically with the amount of demand that there is. Remember that is important. The existing stockpiles of Bitcoin in 2017 were around 25 times larger than the new coins produced in 2017. So that means what already existed, how we talked about how there's less Bitcoin being created than there is that exist. That is what in the basic terms, stock to flow means. So gold has a stock to flow of 62. So gold right now, because of the gold rush, we have so much gold and barely any being found, which drives the price of gold up. Silver's stock to flow ratio is 22. So gold is 62, silver is 22. Bitcoin's current stock to flow ratio is 25, which means it is more valuable than silver. Like we said, with the Halvening, each year less Bitcoin is produced. So over time, we will get to very, very little amounts of new Bitcoin being created, while we would probably still be finding silver here and there and gold here and there. And unlike gold and silver, and especially the US dollar, the amount of Bitcoin is fixed. You can look up right now how much Bitcoin will exist in 2,000 years. There is a plan for how much Bitcoin will be created, and that plan will not change. That is what it is. Unlike with the US dollar, where like today we're printing trillions of dollars, And you don't know if they decided tomorrow to print another trillion more. You would never know. Bitcoin is very transparent with what it plans to do. So this guy Plan B, he calculated the math that will basically tell you, you know, the stock to flow ratio of Bitcoin and what he expects the price to be. So he started in December 2009 and collected data up until February 2019, which is exactly 111 data points in total. So I'm gonna show you guys this graph. I'll put it like up here so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. The big, like as you can see, the big yellow circle there is gold and the big silver circle there is silver. And this is basically what Bitcoin has done over the course of the past years as far as scarcity and value. The best way that I can give you an analogy that you'll understand is the tragic toilet paper crisis of 2020. There was no toilet paper on the shelves, right? So we had a bunch of toilet paper. Toilet paper was cheaper. You paid, you know, $5 for like a package of toilet paper, and everything was good. It was cheap, it was in abundance. There was no scarcity of toilet paper. And then all of the toilet paper got bought, and the demand for toilet paper went up drastically. And then if you wanted toilet paper, you had people selling toilet paper on eBay for $100 a roll, because now toilet paper is scarce and demand is high. So the supply is low and the demand is high, and that creates a price that is higher. When the demand is high and the supply is high, you have a low price. When the demand is low and the supply is low, you have a low price. And that is the best way that I can think of to describe scarcity to you, is when you have an abundance of toilet paper. Toilet paper is pretty cheap. When there's no toilet paper on the aisles, toilet paper is really freaking expensive because you don't have a lot of it and everybody wants it. So that is the best way that I can explain why Bitcoin has value as scarcity becomes higher. So as supply of Bitcoin lowers, the demand for Bitcoin goes up, you have a higher price. How likely is this data correct? This data is 95% correct. So that means there's a 5% statistical error. That means 5% that Bitcoin will not follow this path and come to the price conclusion that this statistical and mathematical model creates. 5% chance this is wrong. And that 5% comes from other factors as far as news outlet, hacks, things like that. So the conclusion of this article is Bitcoin is the first scarce digital object the world has ever seen. It is scarce like silver and gold, and can also be sent over the internet, radio, or satellite. If I had like a giant block of gold right here, I could not just like send that to somebody in China at all. Like the government wouldn't let me do that. They'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? You can't just send people packages of gold. And if I did do that, it'd be really expensive and it would take a super long time. With Bitcoin, I can send that same value to China and no one regulates it. No one says, no, you can't do that. And then the market decides how much it's gonna cost me, which is, you know, just fees. Surely this digital currency has value, but how much? In this article, I quantify scarcity using stock to flow and use stock to flow to model Bitcoin's value. A statistically significant relationship between stock to flow and market value exists. The likelihood that the relationship between stock to flow and market value is caused by chance is close to zeros. But when you look at the stock to flow model against the historical risk and return model, the risk is clearly not factored into the actual price that the stock to flow model shows. People who were guessing the risk of Bitcoin were highly over exaggerating the amount of risk that is involved in Bitcoin, which you should. As anything that is volatile and new, you should overestimate the risk, which means you will underestimate the return. So now we're going to get into how Bitcoin compares to other assets, such as water, the US dollar, and like gold. So as many of us know from the 5th grade, water has 4 phases: solid, liquid, gas, and ionized. And they change at different temperatures. The US dollar or gold did the same thing. At one point, when it came to currency, gold was currency. And then it became the US dollar backed by gold. And now it's just the US dollar backed by nothing. And Bitcoin has had its same transitional phases as far as becoming a currency. The first one is proof of concept, which is the white papers which Daddy Satoshi created. So basically, Daddy Satoshi proved that Bitcoin could exist. The second phase was payments. So basically, once $1 equaled 1 Bitcoin, that was a phase that we got to. Now, 1 Bitcoin equals like $7,000, but obviously at a point when we were down here, way long ago, probably back in like 2009, $1 at one point equaled 1 Bitcoin. Oh, the world, oh. I would have gotten Bitcoin at $1, be a gajillionaire right now. Gajillionaire. 3 is e-gold, which was after the first halvening. So 1 Bitcoin equals 1 ounce of gold. And then 4, financial asset. So after the second halvening, 1 billion transactions per day milestones. So 1 billion times Bitcoin is being transacted over the blockchain per day is a milestone which creates legal clarity. Once something's being transacted, you know, 1 billion or over 1 billion times a day, the legal system steps in and says, hey, we have to have some regulations here and at least understand and at least clarify if this is legal or if this is illegal, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And once we have legal clarification, which we already have a lot of it at this point, like Bitcoin now counts as real property, which is the same as like if you owned a house. So you could also 1031 exchange it, all sorts of interesting things that have come out of Bitcoin becoming a commodity that is widely recognized. There does come some regulations as far as tax implications and what that means for people who own Bitcoin. And there will be a 5th phase, which is most likely to be understood years down the road, because right now we're not at 1 billion transactions a day. We are less than that, and once the technology develops and the transactions are happening, we will have a better understanding of how to create a world where Bitcoin is a national currency. And I believe that the Lightning Network, which is basically kind of like the credit system in a way, but there's not like Uncle Sam or John Biggins, the creator of the credit card, like dangling shit over you that controls the system. It's literally, you're your own bank, you're your own John Biggins, and you have your own credit card. You decide your own fees, which could be like little to nothing, or if you want something transacted extremely fast, maybe a little more, but you are your own bank. You decide your fees, you decide how much it's held, you decide your all of it. You get to decide everything. No more big bang controlling your money and taking away your freedoms. When you look at the banking system now, they took billions of dollars in overdraft fees from Americans. The American banking system took billions of dollars from people who didn't have money to begin with. And with Bitcoin, that's impossible. You have it or you don't have it. There's no overdraft fees at all. It's complete transparency and complete control over your money. So then we look at Bitcoin in clusters, and I will also put this up there so you guys can see it. As far as Bitcoin throughout the stages, so you can see Bitcoin over the past couple of years and how the stock to flow model looks in there, and you can see each phase in which Bitcoin's market value was at. And then we get to compare that to similar assets such as silver and gold. And as you see, Bitcoin has slowly been climbing up through, as far as market value, growing. You can see there on the left-hand side, market value is growing. And so you can see the proof of concept down at the bottom at stock to flow being, you know, a little close to 1. And then it climbs up, and it's still in the process of climbing, people. Like, we haven't even got to this time period where silver and gold are. And after the halvening, we should drastically pass silver and be approaching gold, which just means that the price will continuously go up compared to the, you know, when you look at the stock to flow model. This translates to the price of Bitcoin being $288,000, says Plan B. Now, I believe Plan B left out a huge factor in determining this price, which is the price, the cost of inflation, right? $288,000 is not the same today as it was 10 years ago. And with us printing trillions of dollars, we're going to see inflation over the next couple of years, like a drastic amount of it. For the past couple of years, the average inflation rate, when you look at the amount of interest that the Federal Reserve, when you look at the interest rate for the Federal Reserve and you calculate the consumer price index, you're looking at about a 2% inflation rate on average for the past couple of years. And that's without printing trillions of dollars of stimulus checks. Inflation, my prediction, is going to be anywhere between 2 and 4% over the next couple of years. And this model already includes the inflation that would have previously happened, because the price up until that point already included inflation. So we just need to add the inflation for the next 4 years. So if we're looking at 288,000 and we times that times, let's say, the high point, or let's do the low point first of 2% inflation, we're adding $5,760 to that 288. $293,760. Now, if we're looking at a inflation rate closer to 4%, which is what I believe it to be, you're looking at $11,520 in added inflation. So 288, $299,520,000 per a Bitcoin, when right now it is priced at around $8,000. So for those of you who felt like if you missed the 2018 buy-in of Bitcoin and that you were like not gonna make any money, you were wrong. If you get in like within the next 4 years, you are still early. You are still early to the profits and potential of what Bitcoin can be, as well as being early into the technology and development of an international currency that has little to no inflation, especially over the course of time, compared to any other type of currency that exists today. With the halvening and with an increase in price of Bitcoin, and it's every single day you have more people coming into the space, I think you're going to see with the halvening and the price increase that you're going to see a lot more people come into the space. And I don't think it's going to be too long after the halvening. I think a lot of people believe that you won't see effects of the halvening for a large amount of time, but that is without countries printing trillions of dollars. A lot of these predictions that came out before the coronavirus pandemic. To wrap it all up, my prediction is in the next year, you'll see Bitcoin being around that $55,000 price point. And over the next 4 years, you'll see a peak price of about $300,000, give or take a little bit for inflation and what that actually does, because that obviously is a variable in what the exchange rates for US dollars to Bitcoin is. And then I think we're kind of probably gonna like hang out around that 55. You know, over the past couple years, we've hung out around that 7, 8, 9, 10 range. And I think that's where we'll resettle once we hit that peak price of 300,000. thank you guys for just hanging out, drinking some wine with me. Remember, Bitcoin is king. I will see you on Friday for Flaky Fridays. My toxic subjects, you are dismissed.
Addicted to you, don't you know that you're toxic?